I flew 13 hours to surprise Mom for Thanksgiving, after paying off her $58,000 mortgage, and she called security on me. She said, "Surprises are for people who belong." I said nothing. I just left without a word, and that night, I pressed one button and started something none of them saw coming. So, this happened 3 days ago, and I still feel like I'm stuck somewhere between disbelief and fury. I, 31M, live in London now, have been here for the last 6 years. Got a solid tech job, nothing crazy glamorous, but enough to make a good life. I'm originally from Michigan. My family still lives there: mom, stepdad, younger half-brother, 19M, and my older sister, 33F, who lives an hour away with her husband and 2 kids. Here's the thing. I wasn't always doing well. In fact, I left home at 19 after one of the ugliest fights I've ever had with my mom. I was working 2 jobs, sleeping on couches, and trying to finish school. I kept low contact with the family over the years, mostly holidays or the occasional guilt-ridden call from Mom that somehow still managed to center her. But earlier this year, she called me in tears, real tears this time, said the bank was threatening foreclosure, that she didn't know how they were going to keep the house. She didn't ask me directly, but the implication was heavy. I paid it, quietly, all $58,432. I told the bank to keep it anonymous, and I didn't even tell her until 2 months later when she called and said some miracle had happened and that the bank had cleared the debt. When I said it was me, she was weird about it, said she was grateful, but in that uncomfortable, clipped tone like I had overstepped. Still, I thought maybe this Thanksgiving would be a fresh start. I hadn't been home in 4 years. I decided to surprise her. I booked a flight, 13 hours. Spent a week's salary on last-minute travel, gifts for my siblings' kids, a photo album I'd made of old family pictures she'd lost in a flood, and a sweater I had custom knitted for her because she always used to say handmade gifts meant the most. I arrived at 6:15 p.m. Dinner was supposed to be around 7. When I knocked on the door, she opened it halfway. No hug, just stared at me like I was a Jehovah's Witness on a Tuesday afternoon. "Why are you here?" she said. I smiled, holding out the photo album, and said, "Surprise! Happy Thanksgiving." She didn't take the gift, didn't even look at it. She turned her head and yelled for someone. Security. Turns out the country club had rented out private security for the event. I didn't even know it wasn't at the house this year. I'd shown up at the wrong location. But she was there, getting ready with some friends apparently, and had no intention of seeing me. When the 2 guards approached, she said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "Surprises are for people who belong." I didn't fight it. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg her to let me in. I just looked at her, nodded, turned around, and walked away. That night, after sitting in the cheapest hotel I could find outside of town, I opened my laptop. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I pressed one button. Just one. I started something none of them saw coming, and I'm not even sure they've realized it yet. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying it over and over. Her face, the coldness in her voice. Surprises are for people who belong. After everything, I still didn't belong. I had been the black sheep for as long as I can remember. Not because I did drugs or got arrested or dropped out or hurt anyone. No, I was difficult because I wanted space. Because I didn't accept blind obedience. Because when I was 19, I refused to co-sign a loan she wanted for my sister's failed candle business. That was the original sin. I became ungrateful, selfish, and too proud. But that night, sitting in that yellow-lit hotel room with itchy sheets and the smell of old cigarettes coming through the vents, I remembered something they forgot I had. Back in 2017, when I was broke, I stayed with my mom for 3 months. During that time, I helped organize her paperwork. She had binders full of old files, tax documents, property records, even some legal stuff involving a business my stepdad used to run. There was a whole file I copied to my cloud drive just in case. At the time I thought I might need it if anything ever went south between them and me again. I forgot all about it. Until now. So that night I opened that old shared drive. There it was. A full signed document from 2012. My name listed as a co-owner on the house. You read that right. Before I moved out, my mom had added me to the deed. Probably for tax reasons, maybe even some early inheritance maneuvering, who knows. But she never took me off. When she called the bank in panic earlier this year, it never crossed her mind that I might have rights. That paying off that mortgage wasn't just a favor. It was protecting my own asset. I had legal standing, and she had no clue. I didn't press charges. I didn't show up at her door with lawyers. I didn't even send an email. That's not how I wanted this to play out. Instead, I clicked one button. Transfer access to attorney. My London-based lawyer got everything. The deed, the payment receipts, screenshots of texts, emails, and even her message last month where she said, "I'm just glad it's my house again." I didn't reply then. But now, he's drafting a formal claim to partial ownership. And here's the kicker, because I paid off the debt in full, and the deed wasn't updated, I could legally force a sale. Or demand she buy me out at current market value, $197,000. She turned me away like I was nothing. Now I get to decide whether or not she keeps her home. And I still haven't spoken a single word to her. Not yet. Took 4 days. 4 days of silence before the first call came. Not from my mom. Not from my sister. It was from Kevin, my stepdad. I didn't answer. Then came a voicemail. "Hey, we, got a letter from some lawyer overseas saying you're filing something? That has to be a mistake, right? Your mom's really upset. Just give us a call. Let's fix this before it becomes a mess." A mess. That's what they were worried about. Not me. Not what they did. Just the mess. I didn't respond. By that evening, my sister called. 5 times. Then a text. "Seriously? You're threatening Mom with legal action? After everything she's done for you? Done for me?" I laughed out loud. Like they hadn't just erased me on Thanksgiving like I was a stray dog on their porch. Then came Mom. Her message wasn't angry. It was short. Measured. "I know you're hurting, but what you're doing right now will only hurt everyone. Please let's talk before you do something permanent." Permanent. She meant the house. She knew now. The documents, the deed, the ownership, it wasn't just some legal bluff. I wasn't bluffing. I was the reason they even still had that house. And she knew I had the power to take it away. But I still didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded every message to my lawyer. He was already preparing the next step. Formal notice of intent to petition and sell. That means either she buys me out or the house goes on the market. She had 21 days. On day 6, she finally broke. A new voicemail. Different tone. Less icy. Less composed. "You think this makes you powerful? Punishing your family for what? For protecting a Thanksgiving dinner from being hijacked by your drama? You think money makes you better than us? You still don't belong here. You never did." That was the first time she ever said it out loud. You never belonged. I didn't save the voicemail. I didn't need to. The truth had finally surfaced. Not just her rejection, but her contempt. That all these years of pretending, apologizing, sending gifts, and paying bills had been for nothing. I wasn't her son. I was a transaction. That night, I got a call from my older cousin Carla, one of the few relatives who ever treated me like a human being. She said, "Your sister's freaking out. Apparently, your mom's talking about putting the house in your half-brother's name, trying to move things fast. I thought you should know." So they were already trying to wiggle out of it. Rewrite history. Erase me legally the same way they had emotionally. But I was ahead of them. Because when I sent that first document to my lawyer, I also sent a second one. A sealed copy of a letter from my late grandmother, written in 2015, the year before she died. In it, she said I was the only grandchild who ever took care of her. That the money she left behind was never meant for photo shoots and furniture upgrades, like my sister used it for. It was meant to help someone build something. Guess who handled the estate? My mom. Guess who never told me a dollar was left in my name? Also my mom. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about a house. This was about years of manipulation. Years of being erased, undermined, and treated like a guest in my own family. So no, I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. And I wasn't done yet. On day 10, I got a message from Carla again. "They're calling a family meeting this Sunday, 3 p.m. at the house. They're acting like it's an intervention for you, but it's really just panic. Thought you should know before they start spinning stories." I wasn't going to go. I didn't owe them anything. But then I thought, maybe I do owe it to myself. To finally say it all. With witnesses. With no room to rewrite the story later. So I flew back. Quietly. No announcement. No gifts this time. No suitcase full of soft words and apologies. I walked in at 2:58 p.m. My stepdad looked shocked. My sister's jaw clenched. My brother, blank expression. And my mom? She stood up slowly and said, "We're glad you came." I didn't sit. "Let me save us all some time," I said. "You don't want a conversation. You want a performance. A show where I apologize for hurting everyone's feelings. And you all pretend Thanksgiving was a misunderstanding." No one spoke, so I kept going. This isn't about one holiday or one surprise. This is about a decade of rewriting who I am to make yourselves more comfortable. You didn't just call security on me. You erased me. And you've been doing it for years. My sister snapped first. "You're being so dramatic again. You always make yourself the victim." I looked at her. "Did you tell them about the money? About the letter from Grandma that Mom hid?" Her face flushed. My mom's jaw tensed. "That's not relevant right now," Mom said carefully. "It's exactly relevant. You lied. You stole. And you expected me to just keep playing the grateful outsider." I pulled the file folder from my coat, placed it on the table. "This is the ownership deed. This is the mortgage receipt. And this," I dropped a final envelope, "is the formal notice of intent to petition and sell. You have 11 days left." You could have heard a pin drop. My mom's voice finally broke the silence. "You would really do this to your own family? To your little brother? He grew up in this house." I looked at him. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "You mean the little brother you told never to talk to me again? That one?" She didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, "You're not the person I raised." I smiled. "No, I'm not. I'm the one who raised myself." Then I walked out. And for the first time in my life, no one followed me. It's been 3 weeks. My lawyer moved fast. Faster than they expected. And despite the performative outrage, the moment they realized I had a legal foothold, the tone shifted. Suddenly, I was family again. They offered to buy me out at $75,000. I declined. They tried to negotiate again, $90K. Still no, because this wasn't about just selling my share. It was about finally having a seat at the table they told me I'd never belong at. It was about calling their bluff and making them sit with the reality that I wasn't disposable. So here's what I did. I didn't withdraw the legal filing. Instead, I escalated it. My lawyer filed the paperwork for a court-ordered petition and sale. We included the full mortgage payment record under my name, the deed, the inheritance letter my mother tried to hide, and a written statement describing the public Thanksgiving incident, including witness names. Everything. Fully documented. When the paperwork hit their mailbox, my mom finally cracked. She didn't call this time. She emailed, "You win. The house is yours to sell if that's what it takes. I can't fight anymore." But she still didn't say sorry. Not for the years of gaslighting. Not for lying about Grandma's will. Not for calling security on her own son after he saved her house. Just, "You win." That was the difference between us. I didn't do this to win. I did this to finally close the book she kept ripping pages out of. So we proceeded. The house is now listed. Estimated value, $196,000. We've had 3 offers. One's nearly full price. They'll walk away with half. I'll walk away with half and closure. They can find a new home, start over. But they'll have to do it without erasing me. And me? I've already moved on. I put my half toward a down payment on a home in the place I actually feel at peace. A quiet coast where nobody knows my last name, and where Thanksgiving doesn't come with strings or silence. Last night, I sat on the porch watching the sea. I made dinner for myself, lit a candle that I wanted. Not one chosen for someone else, and wrote this post. Not for revenge. Not for validation. But for that younger version of me who thought love meant tolerating abuse and being grateful for crumbs. Never again. I didn't just take back the house. I took back myself.